Have you ever wished you could bend light like a superhero? Creating holograms or even making things invisible?
Uh-huh. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Well, we might be closer to that dream than you think.
Oh.
We're diving into the world of metasurfaces.
Metasurfaces, huh?
These incredibly thin surfaces that they can do things with light that honestly seem like magic.
I've heard a little bit about those. What's the big deal with metasurfaces? Why are they such a big leap forward?
Exactly. I mean, lenses and mirrors have been around forever, right?
Right, but traditional optics, well, they have limitations. Think of it this way.
Okay.
It's like trying to sculpt a tiny, intricate statue with a giant bulldozer. You just don't have the precision. Lenses and mirrors work great for basic stuff, but they're bulky and they're limited in what they can do.
And that's because?
Because they rely on light's natural propagation.
So metasurfaces are like having a set of microscopic chisels instead of that bulldozer.
Exactly. Metasurfaces are made of these amazing materials called metamaterials.
Metamaterial?
Yeah. They're engineered at a scale smaller than the wavelength of light itself.
Whoa.
So they can interact with light in ways that natural materials just can't.
So it's like having tiny antennas all over the surface.
Right.
Each one designed to tweak the light in a very specific way.
Exactly.
That's so cool. So how do these tiny antennas actually control light? I mean, it sounds super complex.
It is complex, but the basic idea is surprisingly elegant. Imagine light as a wave, and these tiny antennas, they can kind of nudge and twist that wave to create any shape we want.
Wow.
They do this by manipulating the phase and polarization to the light.
Okay, break that down for me. What exactly are phase and polarization?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're holding one end of a jump rope and you start making waves.
Okay.
The phase is like a snapshot of where the rope is at a specific moment. Is it up, down, or somewhere in between?
Okay.
Polarization is like the direction the rope is waving. Side to side, up and down, or somewhere in between.
So by adjusting these tiny antennas on the metasurface, we can change where the light wave is snapped and what direction it's wiggling.
Precisely. And this level of control, it opens up a world of possibilities.
Like what?
We can focus light, split it into different colors, even create swirling vortex beams.
Wait, swirling vortex beams, like tiny tornadoes of light?
It is pretty wild. Yeah. And here's where things get even more mind-blowing.
Okay.
Researchers have created metasurfaces that can do multiple things with light at the same time.
Multiple things at the same time? What do you mean?
Like acting as a lens and a prism simultaneously.
No way. But there's a limit to how many functions they could perform at once, right?
So how many functions are we talking about? 2? 3? Well, until recently, most designs could only handle a handful of functions.
A handful?
But the research you shared, this research points to a way to break that limit completely.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this research hints at achieving, in principle, an infinite number of functionalities within a single metasurface. Right. Infinite? Are you serious? How is that even possible?
It sounds like science fiction, I know. But the key is in how they're manipulating light. Instead of just changing the direction of the light, they're controlling its polarization in incredibly precise ways.
Okay, back up for a second. We talked about polarization before, that jump rope analogy. How does that allow for infinite functionality?
Think about it this way. Light can be polarized in different directions, and we can break it down into components, like left and right circular polarizations. Imagine these are 2 separate beams of light, each spiraling in a different direction. What this research does is design the metasurface to control those 2 spirals independently.
Yeah. So instead of treating light as a single beam, we're basically shaping 2 separate beams within that light.
Exactly. And when these 2 beams, with their different shapes, when they recombine, they interfere with each other. And by precisely controlling the initial polarization of the light, we can manipulate that interference and create an almost endless variety of patterns in the output light.
Hold on, I need to wrap my head around this. So by adjusting the starting polarization, we're essentially choosing how those 2 spiral beams interact.
Right.
And that changes the final light output.
Precisely. It's like having a mixing board for light.
A mixing board?
Where the polarization acts like the dials.
Oh, I see.
We can turn up one spiral, turn down the other, and create a unique light pattern based on how they blend together. Theoretically, there's no limit to the combinations we could create.
This is truly mind-boggling, but it's all theoretical, right? Did the researchers actually manage to build something that does this?
They did. The paper describes 2 experiments.
Oh, wow.
In the first one, They built a metasurface that could generate two separate vortex beams.
Those tiny tornadoes of light we talked about?
You got it.
And how did they control these vortex beams?
By changing the polarization of the input light.
Okay.
They could actually control the intensity of each vortex.
Really?
It's like having two separate light knobs, each controlled by the polarization.
So they could make one vortex stronger and the other weaker just by tweaking the polarization.
Exactly. Now, their second experiment was even more impressive. They created a metasurface that produced a single vortex beam, but they could control both its orbital angular momentum, or OAM, and its local polarization distribution.
LPD.
Yep, LPD.
Okay, I have to admit, those terms are a bit beyond me. Can you break those down a bit?
You got it. Think of OAM like the twist of the light beam.
Okay.
If you've ever seen a spiral staircase, imagine the light spiraling around like that.
Okay.
And LPD is like a map of how the polarization changes across the beam. Imagine shining a flashlight on a wall.
Yeah?
And being able to control which parts of the beam are polarized vertically and which are horizontally, creating a pattern.
So they could control how much the light is spiraling and what the polarization map looked like just by changing the input polarization.
And to make things even more exciting, the experimental results perfectly matched their simulations and theoretical predictions.
Yeah. Wow, so this isn't just some crazy idea. It actually works. This feels like it could revolutionize optics, maybe even technology as a whole.
Absolutely. The implications are huge. Think about it. Smaller, lighter VR headsets that create truly immersive experiences. Medical imaging devices that can see inside the body with incredible detail. Even faster, more efficient data transfer using light.
Okay. Color me impressed.
Yeah.
But this is still early stage research, right?
Right.
When can we expect to see this kind of technology in our everyday lives?
You're right. It will take time to move from the lab to real-world applications.
Yeah.
But the potential is there, and the possibilities are really exciting.
We've covered a lot of ground here,
Right.
from the limitations of traditional optics to this mind-blowing research on metasurfaces and their potential for practically infinite functionality.
And we've only scratched the surface of what's possible with these incredible materials.
It really makes you wonder, what other seemingly impossible technologies might be just around the corner.
Exactly. If we can manipulate light with, well, you said it, near infinite precision, what else might we achieve? What other boundaries might we break?
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
And that's exactly the kind of question we love to, spark here on the deep dive.
Yeah. It's all about exploring the cutting edge of knowledge.
For sure.
And getting you, the listener, excited about the possibilities.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up, we've gone from the limits of old school optics.
Your lenses and your prism.
Right, to these incredible metasurfaces that, they could redefine how we interact with light.
And the best part is, this is just the beginning. We're on the verge of, a whole new era of optics.
Really? Wow.
And it's going to be fascinating to see where it takes us.
From sci-fi dreams to real-world applications, the future of metasurfaces is, it's incredibly bright.
It really is. So keep your eyes peeled for news on this front.
Definitely.
Because this technology, it has the potential to change the world as we know it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of metasurfaces. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
The pleasure was all mine.
Until next time, keep diving deep into the world of knowledge and discovery.